So, flexapro. I did that joke a while ago at Twin Kegs too. Back in like 2021. I did it one time and I just brought it back from the graveyard. And I'm thinking about revamping it. But flexapro is right though. I do flex my feelings like a pro. I don't know if quid pro quo, quid, how do you say that? Quid pro quo. I just always thought that was such a cool thing to say. I think I always wanted to use that in a sentence. But I feel like my feelings are so intense, but they're like all over the place. So I've just been thinking about that a lot. Like, how can I make this work for me? But I've had to like just endure a lot of like mental havoc. And I was talking to this friend of mine yesterday, this guy that I haven't seen in a long time. And we talked for a while. It's basically like a therapy session for him. Because there was just a lot of shit that he told me that he can't even tell his girlfriend. Just about obsessions that he has and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I get that. I really do. Because, yeah, I do feel really close to God because I feel like God sees all the thoughts in my head and God sees all these images in my head and He's the only one. That's why, like, I said this to my priest, my late priest, Father Andrew. I made him so uncomfortable with this conversation. But I told him that, like, God sees me masturbate. Like, there was never a time where I was like, God doesn't see me do this, you know? I feel like I have a pretty, like, vigilant, like, well-rounded understanding of God. And so, like, the whole concept of sin is, like, separating yourself from God. You know, so it's like if you know that you're doing something wrong and you know that God sees you do it, but you have the faith that God understands why you do it, like all the times I stole shit back when I was a drunk. I feel like God will see you through it. I have a hard time believing that God is going to punish us from, like, I don't know, this is just my own belief, and a lot of people on Rumble especially are going to shout more Bible verses at me, which is fine. I don't mind. I'll read them. Not like I haven't read them before, but I'll read them again. But yeah, I just don't think that, like, God would give us these bodies with certain, you know, sexual organs, and we'd have these urges and we'd burn in hell because we give in to them sometimes because we're weak, you know? I never want to be compulsive in my masturbation tendencies, but I still, you know, girls gotta do what a girl's gotta do, honey. I don't feel guilty about it. I went to confession and talked about it though. And I was like, I don't know if I need to talk about this, but I feel like I should address the fact that I do this sometimes. But that's why porn, I think porn is like satanic, because it's putting images in your head. Whereas if you're just like playing with yourself and you're just thinking about something, you're still like more in tune with yourself, versus if you're watching something, or I mean, women tend to read, like they get turned on by erotic material, but like just like the visuals, it's just dangerous. It's very dangerous. But I don't know, that whole thing I always felt was really spiritual for me. Like I felt closer to God because I know that God sees like what I'm seeing, or God's feeling what I'm feeling, or you know, like, and so I can have that deep connection with myself, and I can't have it with other people, which is why I just stopped having sex. Not that it was the slightest bit of a temptation to do that, but like, you know, I don't feel that way. And it's so hard for me to like pair bond. And I view pair bonding as like the whole purpose of good sex, you know, like if you don't feel connected to that person, like why are you even doing that, you know? And ideally, you know, you'd want to have a child with that person. I feel like that's literally the point of fucking, you know? So I just have very idealistic views of that whole thing, and because I don't think anybody will ever live up to them, and I've gotten to a point where I've just given up on the whole idea entirely. I actually just did a 4-step on it. So I just read my sponsor. I think I've shown you. The 4th step is when you take a personal inventory. So, you know, you write down people that you're resentful at, and like the cause of the resentment and how it affects you, and then you write down your part in the situation. But this part, fear. We write down our fears, and then we write down, you know, our sex, like the way that we, this is not interested. But yeah, like we write down like what's happened in our sex lives, but also, you know, what our future partner, like ideally what that would be. And so it's good for me to like, you know, sort of remind myself where I stand on these sorts of things, because, you know, the devil likes to confuse. But I've never thought that like that could work out. You know? Like I always figured he'd break up with me. Because yeah, if you stop giving them what they want, they leave. You know? It's just not worth it. And I'll straight up tell them I'm not fucking worth it. You're better off having sex with somebody else. And yeah. Like, it's not just about the sex either. It's because like I'm just somewhere else in my head, and so like I'm just not really present. Like I'm not even in the same room with you, you know? And that's not fair. I just feel like it's irresponsible. It's emotionally irresponsible for me to pretend that I can do something that I know I can't do. So I will continue to disappoint.